And now, you're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's RBLR Sports.
Hello and welcome to your RBLR Rays show. I am glad that you are along listening to us today. Glad to have you aboard. I'm your host, Pat Davenport, and I am joined today for this special off-season episode by Carter Brantley. Carter, how are you doing? Should we talk about the World Series?
Oh yeah. As Rays fans, we should absolutely talk about the World Series. Yeah, heck of a game. My goodness, I'm doing well because of it. Obviously, you know, it's the off season. It's kind of a grueling time, so it's nice to have a little bit of a glimmer of hope. You know, watching the Yankees get walked off in such dramatic fashion. It's just a whole lot of fun. But you know, we'll see if that translates to the rest of the series, because you know, 7 games, it's a long time. The Yankees are still a really good team, as much as it pains me to admit. But yeah, that was a fun game. My goodness, Nestor Cortez coming in and just serving him up to Freddie Freeman. My goodness, just first pitch, absolute whammo. Just it was beautiful. It was fantastic. So it was a lot of fun. I'm sorry you slept through it, man. That kind of sucks.
Yeah, it's hard to justify the 1 a.m. start time
Sure.
when it's not your team, and when it's two teams that you don't really like. You know, I could be there with the I hope both teams lose
Yeah.
banner. But if I had to pick a team to lose, I'd rather the Yankees lose and the Dodgers get the ring over those darn Yankees. The fact they're even in the World Series makes me cross. But if we're going to watch them serve up losses like that in the most heartbreaking fashion, maybe I can stomach it for a little bit. I mean, am I crazy in thinking that getting Nestor Cortez, a traditional starter, to make his first appearance in the whole playoffs in relief against Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman in extra innings of the World Series, is that the move you'd make?
It was like too cute by like a lot. It was very much a like, hey, I've got Nestor Cortez in my bullpen. Let's use him. And it's like, you also had Tim Hill, who's like a solid lefty. He's been in the postseason all year. His UCL isn't on the verge of tearing. I mean, not wishing that on Nestor, of course, but you know, he came back from this injury, and like, it's like he's barely been, like, he threw a bullpen without doctor approval. Like, he's not really supposed to be pitching right now, and yet he still is. So yeah, it was too cute by a lot. It was not the move I would have made. Hill was right there, would have been fine. Like, if Hill gives up that home run, you're like, well, we went to the lefty, like lefty versus Freddie Freeman. You're going to take that matchup every time. But yeah, just, you know, it's weird, but I'm sure glad it worked out like that. My goodness. I mean, it was really beautiful to watch. But yeah, I would not have made that move, but you know, I'm not Aaron Boone, so that's okay.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you're not, because the Yankees losing that game is all I ask for, and we can get
That's
KK that ring before he retires. That's
Yeah.
the one thing I think all Rays fans should be rooting for in this big market, horrible World Series. But yeah, we're gonna talk some Rays in this show as well. And if you've been following along, you know we like to give you the best Rays content that we possibly can, and the best way to help us out to continue to deliver that is to drop us a like wherever you're watching this from, and also a subscribe. The best place to watch this is on YouTube, because when we are going live, you can drop a comment, and if it's good enough, or ask a question, it will come up live on the feed and we'll be able to respond to it. So it's a good way for us to engage with you to engage with us. So subscribing on YouTube gives you a notification whenever we go live, and lets you know whenever a new episode drops. So it's a win-win for both sides, really. So be sure to drop us a like and a subscribe. Today we're going to be talking about some great memories that we've had from Tropicana Field, and we're also going to be doing a kind of general look at the off season that's about to occur upon us. Some things that we'd like the Rays to do, and some Rays things that they should not do. We'll discuss it. I'd like to hear your thoughts as well. Be sure to let us know in the comments below. Without any further ado, Carter, I think not many people were more regular attenders at Tropicana Field than you are. I'm sure seeing the horrible videos and pictures of the storm were really sad to see. And I guess me and Zach are both not local to Florida, so I guess I'd like to hear your take first of all on how you feel and how the storm went down your way and how you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing fine. Fortunately, we live in an area, Riverview, that's further enough inland to where, like, we have a busted window, but that's about it. I was picking some glass out of my shoes the other day though, because it's a window that's like right near my shoe rack. So
Oh
that
my
was kind
goodness.
of that was kind of crabby. Like I stepped in my shoe and I was like, "Oh, that hurt," and then
Ooh.
take your foot out and it's like, "Oh, there's glass in there." But yeah, I mean, watching Tropicana Field like that, it's a bummer because it's kind of, at least the thought that crosses my mind is like, well, if that's what the storm did to Tropicana Field, then good Lord, what did it do to, smaller structures that are, far more, no offense to the Trop, but far more important, because they house people, they house, families and individuals and all that. So it was rough to see for sure. And, obviously the memories associated with that place, like I grew up there going to games with my parents and everything. It's tough, it's definitely not a great time, but at the same time it's been wonderful to see people be resilient. Tampa Bay's kind of come together and support, so that's been kind of a silver lining, so to speak. But yeah, it's definitely not a great time. And just hope everyone's safe out there and stuff. Obviously at this point we're kind of further enough away from the storm, but oh man, I can't imagine some of the damage out there, especially in St. Pete. So yeah, it's just, thoughts and good vibes to everyone in St. Pete, because man, it's brutal. It's brutal.
Yeah, absolutely. And me and Zach talked a little bit about this last week, but do you think that the Rays have played their last game in Tropicana Field, or do you think there's hope?
Uh, I mean, probably. I mean, I don't know the specifics of the logistics and everything, but I think St. Pete is on the hook for that, and the insurance claims and stuff. Like, there's just so many. Like, I think it was Rick Stroud who wrote a piece on it, and he kind of delved into the many. Good gracious, it was like reading a foreign language with all the different stipulations and all that stuff. You know how insurance companies are, at least in America for sure. But so I don't really expect them to play another game in the Trop, which is kind of sad to think about. They kind of went out with a whimper this past season. So probably not the best season to kind of go out on, but it's extenuating circumstances. There are far bigger problems, so to speak. I totally understand the city of St. Pete being like, yeah, no, we don't want to replace this piece of crap dome that's going to be torn down in a few years anyways. Like, I totally get that. That's just not really a justifiable expense for the city or the local government or the taxpayer or anything like that. So yeah, I'm assuming it's probably their last game, but I'm okay with it. I've come to peace.
Yeah, you said
Come
your
to terms with
farewells.
it. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is how it is. That's how it be sometimes.
Yeah. Is there a preference for where you'd want them to play in the interim
I
before
mean,
the RBLR dome opens?
I'd love if they could stay in Tampa. That'd be cool because I know Orlando is probably the most likely scenario. At least that's what I've heard. The Disney complex, which I understand. Like, I totally get it. Selfishly, I want them to play like at Steinbrenner Field or uh, the Blue Jays complex or Clearwater or anything like that. That'd be really cool because those are gorgeous stadiums. Like, there's really not a bad spring training stadium or single A, whatever that level is. But I get the logistics would be difficult. It's still open air. So I totally understand why the Rays would want to go to Orlando instead. But selfishly, it'd be cool if it was in Tampa still, because Orlando, that's a tough drive. Like, I'm not going to be making it to many games. That's the I-4. Oh, no, thank you. I'll pass.
Even I, as a lowly tourist, remember making the drive when I did the typical tourist thing of Orlando, going to Disneyland, and then going to
Yeah,
Busch Gardens in Tampa. That was a
right.
drive. That was a heck of
Hmm.
a drive.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think that make life really tough on Rays fans if they do go all the way out to Orlando. I
for sure.
guess they could try and leverage the tourism market, I suppose.
Yeah,
Hey,
I
come see a
mean,
Major League Baseball game on your doorstep. But
oh yeah. Yeah, and it's Orlando. Like, there's Disney World obviously, and then there's people coming in and out, and it's such a small stadium that they'll probably be able to raise the prices of the tickets a little bit too, which I don't really love, but I get from the business standpoint that's probably a good thing for them. So I get it. It's also those are nice complexes. Those are nice fields. I grew up like going to tournaments and stuff there for travel ball. And it was always a blast. Like, it was always a great time. They have the main field, and then they have a bunch of backfields too. So yeah, I'm excited as someone that's going to watch it on TV. That should be kind of an interesting television experience. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I guess the last question I have on this whole stadium thing is, what are some of your favorite things about the Trop that you're gonna miss the most? Was there a particular game, or is there certain Tropisms? There definitely are some Tropisms that you're gonna miss. What are your favorite parts of this often maligned and often bad disrespected stadium, shall we say?
Yeah, that's funny. I love, obviously, the AC is the biggest thing I'm gonna miss because, man, walking in during the summer, it's like, 1,000,000 degrees outside, and you walk in, and then you're just whoosh, you're hit with those artificial airwaves or whatever, and it's like, oh wow, that's fantastic. So that's gonna be something I miss. I know it sounds bad, but I loved the fact that no one came to games a lot because then it was like easy in and out. You didn't have to deal with a bunch of obnoxious sports fans because sports fans, no offense to y'all, can be the worst. Myself included, I can be the worst. Absolutely. We can all be obnoxious. So I didn't really mind that as much. And the catwalks, I know they had some, it was kind of Bush League. It was like, wow, like there's like things in play. Like, what the heck are we doing? But I kind of liked it. It was kind of funny, like every time it happened. And then we all had to try to remember what the rules were. And like, oh, well, is that the A or the B or the C? And like, I don't know. It's kind of charming in its own kind of messed up way. But definitely a lot of great games. Like 2008, I was there for the playoffs and stuff. Like ALCS Game 7, Aki stepping on the bag. That was elite, undefeated. Game 162 I watched from my house, but it was still like, it's still a signature Trop moment, obviously. That was a lot of fun. Matt Garza's no hitter was a lot of fun. That was a great time. So there are definitely some great moments from that stadium that I'll cherish forever with my family and stuff. And I'm sure there's countless of people that feel the same way. So it's going to be tough to say goodbye, but at the same time, like, excited for the future. It should be fun to see what they can do moving forward.
Yeah, because no matter what, we've got a new stadium, a brand new stadium on the
That's
way.
right.
Whether it's in 3 years or 4 years, whatever. It's in 2028 is the timeline we're going for. That's 3 seasons away. Until we're playing in the RBLR Dome, until they actually
That's right.
until they actually name it. That's what we're
Yeah.
gonna call it.
Mhm.
I mean, for me, yeah, the 162 is like maybe the most certified Trop moment, just because of that tiny little, short porch in left field. That
For
could
sure.
only have happened at the Trop, and it
Mhm.
could only have happened to the Rays.
Yeah.
I like the catwalks too. I love the glowing roof.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
there was a certified. It always felt like the catwalks became a complication whenever we played the Yankees as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
It
It
felt
was
like
beautiful.
whenever the
Yeah.
Yankees were in town, that's when we'd get the most like weird rulings.
Mhm.
And then everyone would be like, all the Yankees fans would get really mad and be like, why are
Yeah.
we even playing here? And it's like, sucks to suck.
Yeah.
I think Avisail Garcia at one point hit one of the banners with a home run. I think he hit one of the flags in right
Oh,
field
man. I
with a
know
home run.
Marcelo Zuna, unfortunately, did that for the Marlins. But yeah, Avisail hit some I mean, Avisail was a tank. Like, he was freaking huge. I loved watching him play. Yeah, those banners were fun too, like watching them kind of flapping. And yeah, there were some absolute bombs hit during the Rays time. I remember Cliff Floyd in '08. He was on that team. I love Cliff Floyd. He was my favorite player on that team. And he hit a bomb to the Rays tank. I think it might have been a walk-off or something. I don't really remember. But yeah, man, those long home runs look really cool in the Trop. Like, I know
Yeah, they
it's kind
do.
of silly to think that, but yeah, those big flies, they could really fly in the Trop. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and luckily we did hear that all the Rays in the Rays tank are okay and they've
Yes,
been
thank goodness.
relocated. That was big news. I hope wherever we end up next, full time, the Rays tank comes along with because
Yeah, that was what one of my friends said. He texted me. He was like, "Hey, man, I heard about the Trop. That sucks." He lives in Baltimore, and I was like, "Yeah, man, it sucks." And he was like, "What about the Ray tank?" And I was like, "Oh my god." I was like, "Oh well, they got the Rays out and stuff." And he was like, "Oh, the new stadium's got to have a Ray tank, man. Otherwise, I'm not going." And I was like, "Well, man, you're in Baltimore. You're not going anyways. But it was all good. His heart was in the right place. But yeah, the Ray tank, man, that's what the Rays are known for, sort of. And it's a cool spot. Yeah, I hope they bring that back for the next stadium for sure.
Yeah. Trop. R.I.P. the Trop.
Indeed.
It was often regarded as a mess, but it was our mess.
That's right.
It was
It
our
was our
beautiful mess. Moving right along, we're going to talk about the off season. We're going to stop moping about a stadium, and we're going to talk about the players and the actual team. We have had an odd season this year, kind of mediocre, one with very clear strengths and weaknesses. I guess, though, it's not necessarily straightforward as to how you improve this hidden core, which is the obvious weakness of the team, without either jeopardizing some playing time for prospects or moving on from some well-established names or taking some risks. I'm going to start with you, Carter. What for you is the priority this offseason to try and, what I am assuming is going to improve the hitting?
It's tough because like it's always hard to really establish priorities with the Rays because like, what the heck are the Rays going to do? No one knows. Like it's just such a question mark. But I guess just bringing some kind of some continuity or some more stability to the catching position would be cool. Even if they commit to a defensive minded catcher, like that's totally fine. Like I totally get that. But just having some stability. They just kind of shifted around quite a bit. And if it's Roark, hey, great, that's fine. But yeah, it'd be nice to have just a more solid guy back there behind the plate. Because not only does it provide stability for the lineup, for Kevin Cash, he doesn't have to worry about it as much. It's also for the pitching staff. They don't have to build multiple relationships with a bunch of different guys. Like they can just say, oh, Ben Rortvedt and XYZ, or XYZ is our catcher. Like, let's see what we can do. So that's probably my number one priority. Adding some pop would be nice, but I feel like that's more of an internal thing. I don't know that they look for external options. I think they're hoping Christopher Morel can have kind of a bounce back year because he was kind of a bit down last year offensively. Junior Caminero can come back and have a really solid campaign at third now that he's kind of got that spot locked down. So I don't know. I don't know that there are a whole lot of trades or free agent options out there that can kind of solve the Rays issues, just because they have such a bright future that you don't really want to mess that up. You don't really want to bring in, like, I know I would love to bring back Willy Adames. Willy Adames is awesome. He's great. But I like Carson Williams better. I think Carson Williams is going to be an all-star. So if Willy Adames signing him comes at the expense of Carson Williams playing time, then I don't really want that. So I get Willy Adames and needing a new shortstop. Totally understand. Taylor Walls can be a bit of an experience, to say the least, at least on the offensive side of the ball, but he's so great defensively, it might not matter. But he's just holding it down. He's holding it down until Carson gets there. So other than that, yeah, I don't really see that the Rays have a whole lot of moves that they could make. So I know that's kind of a boring get out of jail free card kind of answer, but I don't know. I'm more excited about their internal options than any external options.
I mean, I do agree with you on catcher. I feel like that's one where you're like, there's no like, yeah, we just give the keys to him. Because even in the positions like shortstop where you go, yeah, we're giving the keys to Walls, but that's because we know that Carson Williams is on the way.
Right.
And we can't afford Willy Adames, and there's not really any other shortstop options kicking about. Meanwhile, with catcher, you could hand the keys to Rort and Driscoll, who I guess were the two that kind of ended the year. Neither of which are like particularly inspiring choices. But I guess the good news is we've got no like all-stars. JT Realmuto isn't on the market, or Adley Rutschman. But we've got lots of like solid options on the catching free agent market this year, where you're like, I could give them the starting catcher job and be okay with it. Danny Jansen is a free agent who's who had a decent year with the Red Sox. Yasmani Grandal, if you want to go full defensively, he's probably past it on the aging curve, but he could do it. Kyle Higashioka is a free agent as well. You could go with him if you want to go with a former Yankee. Elias Diaz. You could even make a reunion with Kurt Casale. They're all guys. They're all guys.
They're all people. They all have pulses.
I feel like Danny Jansen at least has some hitting upside.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Jansen's definitely the best offensive catcher on the free agent market, but other teams know that. Other teams are going to be like, "Oh, Danny Jansen, the best offensive catcher on the free agent market." So
yeah.
he might be a bit out of the Rays price range, and kind of understandably, like he's got offensive upside, but like, are you really willing to pay $10 to $15 million for a catcher that might be slightly below league average? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a risky proposition. I love Yasmani Grandal, mostly because he's a switch hitter, and I love switch hitters. But also, he's got a veteran presence. Like, he could come in and kind of be that guy that is just kind of the old guy. I know that's kind of rude to Yasmani. Sorry, man. But he's not going to hit it all. Like, he was horrible offensively for the Pirates last year, but that's okay. Like, he's still a decent framer. Hopefully, with that experience and everything, he's a decent enough pitch caller, and he can give a solid relationship to the Rays pitcher. And he's Cuban, so he speaks a little Spanish. Maybe that plays into it as well. And maybe him and Rene Pinto, maybe if they're willing to move on from Rourt, him and Pinto would be an interesting kind of combination back there behind the plate. But and the good news is Yasmani's not going to be expensive. He might be like a minimum guy. So that's kind of an interesting name that I've floated out there for sure.
Yeah, I love that pick. I just like took a deeper delve into his numbers. He only played about what was this 72 games for the Pirates last year, but
Yeah.
he still put up 2 FWAR, which
Yeah.
would have put him like 4th on the Rays position players in FWAR
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah.
And he hit to a 95 WRC plus, which when you compare it to Alex Jackson,
Oh, of course. Yeah.
like, that's like 4 times as good.
Right. Yeah.
So, he wasn't so bad. His walk rates over the past couple of years was something that was quite impressive. They've kind of fallen off a cliff, but he's still got something. And yeah, he only played for 2.5 million last year, 1 year, 2.5 million with the
Yeah.
Pirates last year. If he
Right.
wants to go for 1 more year for another 2.5 million, I'd be more than happy for the Rays to plug that in to, like you said, be a veteran presence in the clubhouse,
Yeah. I
mentor
don't
someone
even.
like Driscoll.
Right, and I don't even know if he gets that at this point, like with how old he is, and like he lost his starting job to Joey Bart. Like Joey Bart emerged as like the Pirates' future, sort of at the catching position. But I know that we're kind of staying on the Pirates, but they've got Henry Davis and Edney Rodriguez too, in their minor league system, and it would be kind of a Rays thing to sort of say, hey, we know that you have like way too many catchers for your own good. Like, give us one of your prospects. Take advantage of the Pirates. That's a very Raysian thing to do. So Edney Rodriguez, Henry Davis are the 2 kind of big names, but Joey Bart as well, obviously. But I think Davis and Rodriguez are kind of interesting names to monitor for the Rays, because you never know. The Rays are weird. They can do some funky stuff sometimes. Maybe they trade Yandy Diaz or Brandon Lau for one of those catching prospects. I don't know.
Yeah,
It'd be
or a
kind of a.
surplus in pitching.
Yeah, absolutely. Try to take advantage of the Pirates one more time, just for old time's sake. Get another
Yeah,
Austin Meadows, Tyler Glasnow, and Shane Baz. That'd be a lot of fun.
I love that. I'm having a look at the available free agents. I guess like there's not much else in the like you would love the Rays to get a big bopper corner outfielder, because like right now you've got Lowe, and then you've got Siri, whose future is like
Uncertain.
it's
Yeah.
uncertain. Like you'd probably expect him to be on the team next year, but like you could see if the Rays find a better center fielder like opportunity, they'll go for it. There's some interesting there's Juan Soto. We're not going to get Juan Soto. We'll probably put in like a 2-year, $150 million offer on Juan
Yeah.
Soto.
Yeah.
And then he'll go, no, I'm going to sign for 15 years for
Yeah.
150 million. And we'll be like,
Right.
oh, okay.
Makes sense.
And then Teoscar Hernandez only signed a 1-year deal with the Dodgers. I think they might try and re-sign him, but he's a free agent again.
He might get a good deal from somewhere else too, because he had a great year for the Dodgers. Like, he was really good. So I think he had a down year in Seattle, just because everyone has down years in Seattle when they go to that park. So I think a lot of teams are like, oh yeah, Teoscar Hernandez can hit. Like, it's okay. Like, we can pay him, and he's good enough defensively. Like, he's not Mookie Betts or anything out there in right or left, but he's fine. So he'll probably get a decent enough payday from another team.
Yeah, Cody Bellinger's on the market again.
Yeah, I'm not.
No.
No.
Pete Alonso, Tampa native.
Something about those 30-plus-year-old slugging first base make me really nauseous. Like, I think I'm okay.
Gleyber Torres.
He's an interesting guy. I think the Yankees might try to. I don't know. I don't know what the Yankees are going to do. But yeah, Glaber's fine. He would be cool. But I think he gets a bit of a payday from another team. Like, he's played well enough in the postseason to maybe trick like the Rockies or someone weird to like give him kind of interestingly big money. Maybe not like 20 or 30 million or anything, but like, yeah, I think the Rays will probably stay away from Glaber.
The only other ones that like catch my eye is like maybe if you want to, but again, I don't see the Rays spending crazy money on like decent corner outfielders like Mark Canha, like Anthony Santander, who did have a breakout year, but like
but
I think I don't think the value for the Rays is there.
No, Baltimore can keep him if they want him.
Yeah, Jock Peterson.
Ooh, I love Jock Peterson as a hitter, but yeah, I don't know if he's worth, because he's a DH at this point. He's not even a corner outfielder. He's so like he's a big dude, he's kind of lumbersome. So I wouldn't want the Rays putting him out there at all.
So yeah, I mean, crazily, there is a potential that Garrett Cole could opt out of his deal.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
He won't, but he could.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he could opt out to get a bigger long-term extension. I think that's been what I've heard. But yeah, probably not signing with the Rays at least.
Why would the Rays want him? Like, we got so many guys.
Yeah, he's not good. He's trash. He's Garrett Cole. Boo. Yeah, boo. Yeah.
Boo. Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a, like, we have got some nice names at the top of the free agent list, but we never look there when you're the Rays. So you got to think about trades. And again, like, the Rays will not trade for the person you think they're going to trade for.
Right.
Ever. Because I'll keep saying Luis Robert until I'm blue in the face. But it'll never, like, if it ever happens, I need a job in the Rays front office, basically.
They got to hit you up. They got to be like, hey, we're looking for a theater enthusiast to hire to our front office.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not the biggest free, like, it doesn't, what the Rays need and what's on the free agent market doesn't match up. And with trades, they will often go for players before they become stars, before they become recognized. I think you made a really good call about the Pirates' young catchers. But other than that, I guess the only thing they could do is trade from the crazy amount of pitching that they have if they think that they've got so many good relievers or so many good starters that they could package them together. Or if they think Xavier Isaac is surplus to requirements because they've got Trey Morgan, they could maybe try and trade him before his value starts to drop, before he gets to high levels of the minors and gets exposed a bit more. There are options, but again, there's no clear, obvious path. And I think it's a really challenging position. And there's probably a whole episode to dedicate on this, but the Brandon Lau and Yandy Diaz situation is like, whether this is a big year to make a call on those two guys, on whether or not they're worth keeping around for an extra year, because I think both of them next year would be their last year on their respective deals. So it's whether or not to try and get value from them now as a trade, or try and make one last ride with them. Knowing the Rays, we know which way that's probably going to go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I think we've seen the last of Yandy Diaz and Brandon Lau in a Rays uniform, but that's all right. They were great. It's going to be a lot of fun watching what they do in other places, but yeah, unfortunately, it's sort of a foregone conclusion in my head that both of them are probably out of here.
And do you think they're both gone for prospects in typical Rays fashion, or do you think there's some kind of way that we could divvy them into major league ready pieces? Because I feel like the building up the farm system part happened in July, so surely now is the time to start refortifying the major league team.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, you could flip them for some more like cost controllable long-term options. Oh God, I hate that I just said cost controllable. I'm sorry. I hate, like, I know that that's like a very common term in baseball talk, but it's just such a gross way to describe players. Like, oh, they're cost controllable. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, oh, I don't know.
People.
Sorry. Yeah, I shudder at the thought of me turning into that, but I'm turning into it. But anyways, yeah, they could trade for some younger players,
Yeah,
maybe guys with more longevity, so to speak. So yeah, that'd be kind of interesting. Maybe some more like major league ready talent. So it's certainly something to think about. But with Brandon Lau, it's kind of awkward because he's got the option. So like, do teams see that and they're like, no, we're not giving you any prospects for someone that you're just going to let go anyways, you know? So um, I don't know. It's something to monitor. Yandy, they could probably flip for maybe like some major league ready other position players. Maybe they flip Yandy for like a major league ready shortstop that's, you know, maybe a bit more offensive oriented so that Taylor Walls can sort of be that super utility defensive whiz that I think his value is immense in that role. Like I love Taylor Walls in that role. That's perfect for him. But yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see what happens. There's a lot of different avenues that the Rays can explore with both of those guys.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm looking at like not this year, but next year's shortstop class of free agents who are like, I guess you could trade for as a 1 year rental.
Mhm.
Bo Bichette.
Ooh, I don't
Could
know if
you
I don't
could
know if
you
the Blue
look
Jays.
Eric Neander in the eye if he traded Yandy Diaz to the Blue Jays for Bo Bichette?
Oh man, I mean, like that's a huge steal for the Rays, but I don't know what the Blue Jays are thinking if they do that. That'd be wild. Because then you have Yandy and Vladdy Jr. Like I don't know
Yeah, it
what.
doesn't work. It doesn't
Yeah, I
work.
don't
What
know what
about
you're thinking there.
Belau for Bo Bichette?
That's still like Brandon Lau. Like you're trading for a second baseman like that might play 100 games, that might be above average offensively. Like, well, not might be. He'll definitely be above average offensively. I don't know. It's a weird kind of thing. Maybe if they package Brandon Lau and like a pitcher or something, you know, like maybe
Yeah.
Brandon Lau and Zach Littell. Like I love Zach Littell, but he has immense value right now. His value is going to be super high, so the Rays are not going to hesitate to pull the trigger on that. So you know, it'd be kind of interesting to think about it from that perspective. But Bo Bichette's also in his arbitration years, so he'll probably be making maybe $20 million or so. I can't remember the exact figures, but it's definitely going to be a high number because he's been an all-star before. You know, he's a really, really good offensive shortstop. Um, That'd be a really fun proposition. I'd love that. That'd be fantastic. I'm a big Bo Bichette fan as a player. I think this past year was just an aberration. Like he's gonna come back and have a huge 2025. But yeah, that'd be a lot of fun for the Rays. But I don't know how the Blue Jays would feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, apparently, according to Spotrac, he's estimated to make about 16.5 million in ARB
Mm,
next year, which is
gotcha.
expensive for a 1 year rental. But it is a
Yeah.
1 year rental, so I guess the Rays could stomach it for a year. Another name that I think could be useful as like a stopgap, and him and Wars can share super utility roles. Tommy Edman.
Ooh, okay, yeah, I
He's a
like
free
Tommy.
agent. He's a free agent not this year, but next year. So the Dodgers might move on from him if the right piece came across. I could definitely see that happening. The Rays will value his switch hitting. They'll value his positional versatility. Tommy Edmonds like not as good of a fielder as Taylor was, but defensive metrics do love him. And you know he's a decent hitter. He's a completely fine hitter. So like as stopgaps go, that works for me if you're gonna do one.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Tommy Edman to the Rays has been like a theoretical thing for a few years now because he just seems like the perfect Rays player, sort of the not quite as good as Ben Zobrist, but sort of that same switch hitting, super utility, elite defensive mold. And yeah, he's a really good shortstop. I don't know that the Dodgers give up on him at this point. Honestly, he's had such a great postseason. What he brings to that team in terms of his versatility, his speed, his contact ability, he just gives a lot to that lineup. So I don't know that the Dodgers let him walk at this point. I think he's staying in LA. But yeah, if the Dodgers are maybe they're looking to add I don't know, maybe they're looking to add a left-handed power bat in Brandon Lau, or maybe Andy. I don't know. Maybe Littell is attractive to them. That could be sort of an interesting thing. But yeah, I'd assume Edmund stays in LA. But man, if he ends up in a Rays uniform, that'd be awesome because he's been a sort of a favorite of I think of a lot of Rays fans for a while.
They might want to move him if, say, they gave $200 million to Willie Adames.
Ooh, I like that a lot. Yeah. Yeah, they might be willing to, but then again, it's the Dodgers. Their pocketbooks are so, you know, deep. Like they're just like, hey, you know what we could also do? Just keep Tommy Edmond and still sign Willie Thomas. And
Yeah,
it's like,
that's true.
okay, like just buy every player in baseball. That's fine. It'd suck, but you know, that's life in Major League Baseball at this point. But Yeah, that's certainly an interesting avenue to explore. I have seen Adamas to the Dodgers. Like Andrew Friedman is the guy who traded for him in Tampa, so clearly there's like kind of a maybe a bit of a personal connection there if you think about it. So, yeah, Adamas to the Dodgers. That's kind of an interesting proposition.
Yeah, we'll watch that as it goes along. Is there anything you desperately want the Rays to not do this
Other
offseason?
than sign Pete Alonso, no, I'm sorry. I don't mean to hate on Pete Alonso so much. I hope he gets paid, but
Go on,
it's
show
cool to
your
see.
work. Tell, because there'll be some people that will want the Rays to sign Pete Alonso. Show your work. Why should we not sign Pete Alonso?
Albert Pujols. That's the biggest. I mean, Pete Alonso is not anywhere near being as good as Albert Pujols, and yet like Albert Pujols, after he signed that big deal with the Angels, good gracious, dropped off a cliff. Like it was not pretty. But just the slugging first baseman, his profile just doesn't. I don't know that it ages particularly well. He's also like, other than hitting home runs, like he doesn't do much very well. Like he's pretty average defensively. Like he walks a fine amount, I guess, but for the first base position, he's just not worth the investment that another team would be willing to make. And good for him. Like he deserves to get paid. He's been a really good player. Don't get me wrong, but just for the amount of money that he's going to earn, it's just not worth it for the Rays. But other than Pete Alonso, yeah, there's nothing off the table for the Rays, really. There's not a position that I look at that I think, oh, they need to avoid signing there. Like maybe third base, I guess. But even that, like they could theoretically they could shift around Junior maybe if he's willing to play second or something weird. But yeah, I'm not really too worried about the off limits thing because it's the Rays. They're just so weird and quirky. They just love to do all sorts of things. So yeah, nothing really off the table other than, like I said, Pete Alonso.
I mean, I saw Nolan Arenado is apparently going to get shocked.
Oh yeah, so
Apparently,
him
at the
off the
deadline.
table as well. I don't want Nolan Arenado.
Maybe if maybe like 5 years ago, I would have loved Nolan Arenado on
For
the
sure.
team, but we're long past that point, I think. I guess for me, and this is just let's not cut payroll for cutting payroll's sake.
Absolutely.
Because the main frustration, and I thought this during last off season, and I'm going to think the same again this off season. There was this narrative last off season that the Rays had no payroll limits. They were happy to run like a record high team payroll. They were happy to like bring everyone back, run that suspected $120 million payroll. Were all the reports. They said there's no limits. We're just going to run back whatever payroll we think is the best to see our team win. And then they shipped off Tyler Glasnow. They shipped off Manuel Margot. They shipped off a couple of ARB eligible players like Luke Raley, and ended up cutting payroll by about $45 million, $50 million. And I was like, okay, well, if we're running it back with no payroll limits, surely like this money that we've saved is going to get reallocated somewhere. It didn't at all. And in fact, as the season went on, we continued to shed payroll. We continued to cut the more expensive players. And it looks like we're about to do that again.
Yeah.
And I know this is a cycle that the Rays have to go through because they don't have the funds that other teams do. And to remain competitive, they often do need to trim payroll, and they can't afford to run, a $200 million payroll because that's just not what they can do feasibly. But at the same time, I would rather that we weren't lied to about it.
Right.
Instead, yeah, of course we can run $120 million payroll. Okay, well then do it. Like,
yeah.
Like, would we have made the playoffs if we had Tyler Glasnow and Manuel Margot on the team? Probably still no, because that wasn't the weakness of the team. Pitching wasn't the weakness of the team, but like it's the optics of it for me. I felt like we got lied to twice last offseason. Once about Rene Pinto, once about the payroll. And I want a bit more honesty and a bit more upfrontedness. Like if they're going to cut payroll, just say, listen, we think the best option for the team right now, while we're currently reloading the team because we're in a transitional phase, is we are going to cut some payroll. I'd rather they just said that than pretending that they're going to spend $120 million. I know it's all eyewash and it's stock prices but it's frustrating because I feel like it's happening more often than it used to. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd say more often than it used to. I feel like it's always been like this. But I definitely feel you. Like it's definitely frustrating because there's different, I always think of it as like there's different resources of allocating players, of allocating talent. And it's, free agency, trades, draft, international signings, et cetera, et cetera. And the Rays just, they pretty much have cut themselves off from free agency talent. They've had exceptions, of course. There's exceptions to the rules, Zach Eflin, Charlie Morton, and they've worked out swimmingly. Like their player evaluation is clearly phenomenal. Like it's clearly top of the line. They make these smart baseball moves, and I totally get them. Like the Randy Arozarena, Isaac Paredes, and even the Tyler Glasnow trade. Those were all smart baseball moves. Like they ended up working out, and I think that you can't say for sure with Randy and Isaac Paredes, but theoretically those should work out pretty well. But they're good baseball moves that also happen to save the Rays a lot of money. You know what I mean? So it's kind of that icky, like, well, yeah, like it makes sense. Like I'm not going to argue with it, but at the same time, like it just so happens that you're also pocketing a bunch of savings and salary. So it's frustrating, because the Tyler Glasnow deal, like it was a good deal. Like they got rid of Manny Margot's contract, which was bad. And Tyler Glasnow got hurt, of course, because unfortunately that's just what happens with him. And Ryan Pepio has been fantastic. Johnny DeLuca, he's going to be a great player for moving forward. But it also just so happened that they saved a bunch of money. So it's kind of a disgusting look, but that's the Rays, that's the nature of their, they were going to take some real losses of this offseason if they didn't make those moves according to the ownership group. So, they had to make sure that their super lucrative Major League Baseball team didn't take any losses. And, we're also going to charge a bunch of money from the taxpayers and stuff to build a new stadium. But that's a whole nother topic. I'm not going to get all in a tizzy about that. Yeah, it's depressing, but it's unfortunately the nature of the way the Rays do business. So just got to deal with it. That's how it be.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the deals were bad, and I think they were motivated primarily by reloading the gun and taking an asset that was probably going to leave soon, or stop being as valuable in Tyler Glasnow and Manny Margot, and getting like that dirty word, cost control
Right.
players.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it just seems disingenuous when the money never gets spent anywhere else. Like if they yes, we make a good baseball move and we've saved money, great. We could now double our benefits by reallocating that money somewhere smart, and they just don't. And maybe it's not for a lack of trying, but you can't look me in the eye and say, hey, we could have spent $5 million on a catcher this year.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like there's this narrative sometimes that people say, "Oh, well, free agents don't necessarily want to come to Tampa," and I totally get that. Like the long-term free agents don't want to come play for the Rays because the Rays probably aren't willing to give them long-term deals to begin with, and B, like the Rays could theoretically trade them in the middle of that deal because that is just what the Rays do. So I totally get that, but I think the frustrations from my end lie with the lack of investment in one-year deals because there's no such thing as a bad one-year deal. Like I know that from it's not my money, so it's easy for me to say that. But like, because after a 1 year deal, like it's 1 year, like you wash yourself clean of it. Like you're like, oh, this didn't like Phil Maton didn't work out. Like, okay, ship him to the Mets. Like it's fine, or he'll be gone after this year anyways. Like it doesn't really matter. So the lack of investment from that point of view, like it is a bit frustrating. But at the same time, like does JD Martinez or Jock Peterson really push the Rays into the playoffs? Probably not. None of the 1 year deals that were made this season would have really led to the Rays having any different sort of outcome on this season. So I get it, but at the same time, like you said, it's optics. It's more of a like this team's never ranked higher than like what they've never been out of the bottom third of the league in payroll. So there's clearly a limit on payroll. Like and Eric Neander even said it at the trade deadline. That was the most honest I've ever seen a Rays executive, and it was super refreshing. He was just like, "Hey, man, like this is how it be. Like we just got to operate this way because like it sucks. Like we don't have the money to spend that." And like, hey, I get it. Like, hey, thank you for just explaining it to me because then it's not like you said, it's not feeling lied to. So that was really nice. It was really refreshing. I really like the Rays front office, love everything they do. So it's never a comment on them or anything that anyone that works for them. It's just it's always going to be with the higher ups. But that's also every owner. Like I hate every owner in baseball and professional sports. So you're never going to catch me saying anything complimentary about any of them. They're all rich jerks. So yeah, that's just a me thing. That's me being kind of a stick in the mud myself.
Oh no, I completely agree with you. And yeah, I think, like I said, 1-year deals, I think, even for players, I think the Rays have a pretty good reputation of those
Yeah.
1 year kind of, hey, you had a bit of a down year last year. Don't worry, go to the Rays. They'll
Yeah,
rehab
they
your
have a
career.
great player development system. That could be their pitch. Like I'm sure that is their pitch. And
Yeah.
that would be super lucrative for baseball players. Like that's absolutely
See
a selling point.
Ahmed Rosario, right? Like he's the great example. He took less money because he was like, hey, I want to come to the Rays because they have such a good reputation of taking you in for a year, mending you up. If you do well, they'll either get you a good contract next offseason or they'll trade you to a contender. So like,
Yeah, exactly.
it's a win-win. So I don't see like, yeah, sure, we can't go get Juan Soto. Sure, we can't get Bryce Harper because we don't have that kind of pull. We don't have that kind of money. But there are definitely 1-2 year deals that could be made to help make the team better, like a Yasmani Grandal type beat. That just add a bit of extra, show a bit of willing, and I'd love the team to do that a little bit. And I'm not saying spend stupidly or stray from the process,
Of course,
but
absolutely.
show a bit of willing. Don't just cut payroll and say, yeah, don't worry, we're happy to run the payroll back, but we're not going to spend any of it.
Yeah, it's super frustrating, but I get like their hard line of like not overpaying for players. They have clearly a very specific way of how they value players. But man, this constant like the Aaron Judge thing from this past year. He said like, oh, they offered me a 10-year, $300 million contract, and like, hey, that's great. Like that's cool for the Rays, and I'm glad Aaron Judge felt good about it. But if I'm Aaron Judge, like he could have very well been very negative about that. He could have been like, yeah, it was pretty insultingly low offer, like $30 million a year. Are you kidding me? Like I'm one of the best hitters in baseball. Like I'm not gonna. He could have been a real turd about it. But he was very gracious. Like anytime anyone offers you $300 million, I'm sure you're like, hey, thanks, man. I'll probably pass, but I appreciate it. So it was kind of an interesting storyline. The Freddie Freeman thing, like speaking of, because he hit that walk off. Like I know the Rays were involved with him. I think the number that they threw around was 23 million AAV. I don't know. Please don't quote me on that. It could be 24 instead, but instead he went to LA and got 27. So it's just I'm kind of sick of that. Like, I'm kind of annoyed with like this whole, like, well, the Rays are in on all free agents. Like, yeah, okay. Like theoretically, like, aren't we all in competition to like date famous celebrities too? Like in theory, like that just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, it's not really like I could like you could go DM like what's the Sabrina Carpenter after this show.
You
That
could,
doesn't mean
yeah.
that doesn't mean you're in competition to be dating Sabrina Carpenter. You know what I mean? So anyways, that's kind of a bad metaphor, but y'all get what I'm saying. But yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be another sort of frustrating off season from that perspective, I think. But it's the Rays; they're all gonna kind of be like that. But there's also some potential for excitement. So
Yeah.
I'm always trying to be on the optimism side because oh man, it's tough being a negative Nancy all the time.
Oh, for sure. And I think it's just because we've come off our worst season in 6 years.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's something we're not used to having the off season be this long. And it feels like the Rays are going to be back up in the playoffs pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
It's just you feel like there's work to do and you're not sure how they're going to go about it. I think the one thing we can always place our bets on are the Rays doing something unexpected and making us lose our mind with some kind of crazy trade at least once this offseason. I'd be surprised if we don't trade with the Mariners at least once. There's stuff we're going to do. I love a trade, and I'm glad I'm a Rays fan because I love trades, and we do a lot of those. So, yeah, and I think it's that hard balance we have to try and find as people that talk about the Rays between our heads and our hearts, right? Because they often want different things. Like our heads want the front office to do exactly what they're doing, basically. But our hearts also want us to do something that makes us like go, yeah, finally something that's not cold, ruthless efficiency and something that's just like, that makes us feel good. So, you know, it's a hard balance, because I think sometimes teams should do something that's not called ruthless efficiency to make the fans feel good. Like, obviously, you might disagree with that, but I think why do we watch sports? To feel good. So if our team can do stuff to make us feel good, that's what we're here for. But that's not what the front office are here for. The front office are here to make the team do as well as possible and be as efficient as possible. So there's a contrasted interest there that we kind of got to find a compromise on, I think. But I think we'll call it there on that discussion, because we could go on forever, and we often do on the RBLR Discord.
That's right.
Trying to find a compromise between those two things. But I'm sure you guys have some takes on all this. Do you think the Rays front office should continue to be efficient and do things exactly for the value that they should be? Or do you think that they should overpay for some free agents every now and then? Or do you think they should go out of their way to sign a player that's on the other side of the aging curve for a short-term gain? Because at the end of the day, our interest is winning baseball games now. So there's no right or wrong way to look at things. Be sure to let us know in the comments, and let us know on social media at RBLR Rays, at RBLR Sports. And be sure to drop us a like and a subscribe if you've liked what you've heard today. It really, really goes a long way to help us all out. I think we'll be back here next week. In fact, I know we'll be back here next week continuing to discuss this offseason. Maybe the World Series will have taken some dramatic twists by then. But until then, I hope you all have a very, very good week. And as always, raise up.
Raise up.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.